great to see everyone. Let's hear it for our amazing speakers. If you heard clapping backstage, that was us. So much energy in this room, all the leaders, all the activists, all the elected officials. Thank you for having me and letting me say a few words. It means a lot. And I've seen you all out there. I've seen you out all around the country fighting for all of us, fighting for our rights. So I see it. We all see it. But let's just go back a year. I remember where I was, but I also still remember how I felt. And I'm still angry a year later. But I could remember it. I was here in D.C. My wife, the Vice President, Kamala Harris. It still never gets old saying that. But she was on Air Force Two, traveling to an event, and the news hit, so she was able to see it. And she called me within seconds. And it was something like, Dougie, they actually did it. They actually did it. And then within minutes, our then 23-year-old daughter, Ella, texted me. And I hear from her when I want to hear from her, but this was one of these, Dad, you need to do something about this. And then within minutes after that, my 80-something-year-old mother, Barb, again, I don't hear from her unless I need to hear from her. It was like, honey, you need to do something about this. And think about that, a woman of that age, of that generation, and she was one of those women who was out there fighting and marching and fighting for the rights that have been just drastically ripped away, and that was my mother. And now think about it. All these years later, 23, now 24-year-old daughter somehow is going to have less rights than my 80-something-year-old mother. That cannot stand. That cannot stand. Thank you. So like I said, I'm still angry about this, but like all of us, we have to turn that anger into action. So for my part, this past year, I've written articles, I've traveled and spoken all over the country, a lot of times to young men, to get them activated, to know this is an issue for them. And I've worked with these three groups, and I worked with a lot of you talking about the important issue of abortion access and reproductive freedom. And just yesterday, I had, I have to say, a pretty painful group of conversations with medical providers. And hearing firsthand the horror stories that are now out in the news, but this is real life. And this has an absolute real life impact on women. And these stories are horrific. These draconian laws in these states that have no regard for women's health, let alone our fundamental rights, are literally affecting and sometimes fatally the health of the women of this country. And us men, this is an issue for us too, all of us, and that's why I think it's important to use my voice in this microphone to talk about this issue, that abortion access, reproductive freedom is an issue for all of us, men, women, everyone. Because it affects us, and it affects our fundamental rights, and women cannot be less than. It's just the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. So I could not be prouder to be part of this team led by our great President Biden, Vice President Harris. As you know, they are fighting for you each and every day for fundamental human rights and for the future of this country. And I get to see it firsthand. They have your back. They have all of our backs. And speaking of a leader, a warrior for so many issues, and again, I get to see it firsthand, someone who stands up for human rights, for women's rights, the rights of women and girls all over the world, not just here. Our amazing First Lady, my good friend, Dr. Jill Biden.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. I love you too. All the women out there with heels should just slip them off right now. You take them off. Take them off. Done. Because I've been watching from the backstage, seeing how long you're standing, and I said, "Are they all standing that long?" Yeah, slip them off. Slip them off. So, anyway, thank you. And as you said, this isn't just a women's issue. And we're never going to make the progress we need unless more men like you and like Joe are willing to speak up and get to work. So thank you, Doug, for your commitment on this. You're an amazing second gentleman, isn't he? Thank you. So, good afternoon. I grew up before Roe v. Wade. And abortion was something that really we only whispered about. And it was shrouded in secrecy and shame. And in that silence, so much was lost. Security and dignity, dreams, and even lives. Roe changed so much. But a lot of people didn't want to talk about this issue. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they thought it was too political. Maybe they didn't think we needed to, because after all, Roe was the law of the land. But you, the advocates, have never been silent. You've worked tirelessly, long before we lost Roe, to protect women and strengthen the right to choose. Thank you for your work. Today, we find ourselves refighting the battles of the past, and it's heartbreaking. And yes, we knew that there would be devastating consequences from this decision. But knowing still couldn't prepare me from what I heard a group of courageous women who shared their stories at the White House this week. Maybe you saw it. It was Elizabeth, Anya, Nancy, Austin. They came from different backgrounds and states, Florida, Texas, Louisiana. However, the details of their experiences were similar. They wanted these pregnancies. There was crib shopping and ultrasounds stuck to the fridge, and then a devastating diagnosis. Doctors who refused them care. Pain and humiliation and deadly infections. They described being told that they were in medical danger, but not enough to get the abortions they needed. They talked about being afraid to tell people what happened, of feeling like a criminal as they fled their home state to get care, how their spouses felt helpless, terrified for their families. They recalled their stories, if any of you saw it, with stone-like strength, poised, practiced. But then I would see a memory flash across their eyes, as if they were back in that bathroom, waiting for the worst, or praying that they'd make it to safety as they crossed the state line. Their voices would crack. They'd pause to fight back the tears. And we all waited in silence, grabbing a hand, breathing together through the pain. It was a sisterhood of survivors, not just of loss, but of a cruelty that made that loss so much worse. The women I spoke to didn't want to relive the worst moments of their lives, but they kept doing it. They tell their stories again and again, not for themselves, but for all of the women who can't. If they can raise their voices, how can we do any less? We won't. Women put Joe and Kamala in the White House, and we will do it again. Not just for ourselves, but for all of the women whose educations and careers and families were founded on the ability to choose when they have children. For the young women who will grow up in the world we're shaping for them right now. And for all the fathers and the brothers and the husbands and the sons who love them. My mom used to tell me, Jill, things will always look better in the morning. And she was right. We take it day by day, battle by battle. We don't lose hope, and we don't quit. We honor the struggle of the women who came before us, and we will find our courage for the ones who come next. We wake up each day in the bright light of morning and keep fighting for our future, knowing in our hearts that, yes, together we will win and send Joe and Kamala back to the White House. Thank you.
Please welcome the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
A lovely day,
Hi. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Oh, it's always so good for us to all be together. What a powerful, powerful group of true patriots, of true patriots, of true patriots. You know, because there's something that is so important about this fight that we are in, so fundamental. We are fighting on behalf of foundational principles. One of the most important principles upon which our nation was founded, the importance of freedom. Freedom. Freedom to make decisions about one's own life, one's own body. The freedom to be free from government interference when it comes to one's private decisions that are about heart and home. We are here because we love our country. We believe in these foundational principles, and we will always fight to achieve the ideals of our country. That's why we are here together. So I thank all the leaders who are here, including, of course, the most honorable members of the United States Congress, our extraordinary Speaker Emerita, Nancy Pelosi, a great woman, a great leader, a great woman, a great leader, the champion of our administration for women and families, Dr. Jill Biden. And of course, my husband, the second gentleman of the United States. So it really is a joy and an honor to be with a group of folks, leaders of so many movements, but in particularly the organizations that I've been proud to work with in my entire career. LaFonza mentioned it. I mean, I have received endorsements from these three organizations over the course of my career, and I do believe it is a function of the work that we have done together on so many issues that, again, are about freedom and about dignity and about autonomy and about the rights and the dignity to which all people are entitled. So I want to thank Emily's List, Planned Parenthood, and NARAL for all that you are and all that you do. Emily's List, I mean, LaFonza Butler, how about that? She is extraordinary. And then, of course, Ellen Malcolm, who has just been a shining star in this movement for so long. And you know, as district attorney, as attorney general, I worked with NARAL on so many issues, including our work to defeat an anti-choice ballot initiative and our work to protect health clinics and providers from violence. As a United States Senator, I worked with Planned Parenthood on critical legislation, including, I was a proud co-sponsor of the Women's Health Protection Act. And so, there's a lot of work that we have done together, providing us with the roadmap of what we will do going forward. And for all of those reasons, today, President Biden and I are honored to accept the endorsement of these three organizations. For 4 more years. Exactly. So, to get there, let's talk about the work. And let's take a moment to really reflect on the historic progress that we've made thus far. You know, so many of us are always in the process of fighting to achieve full equality, full freedom, the rights that people are fully entitled to. But let's always take a moment to also see what we have achieved thus far, while we clearly see the moment that we are presently in. So we have achieved a lot. And I know that in particular when the Dobbs decision came down, a lot of us, it hit us very hard. Doug talked about it. Jill has talked about it. We all know how we felt. It was painful. But let's also remember what we have achieved together to continue to provide us with the sustenance that we rightly deserve to know that we make a difference when we are in this fight. And let us center on this moment also. And I do believe this is a moment when we are seeing a national agenda, which is a full-on attack on so many of our hard-won rights and freedoms that we thought were long settled, but are now under attack. That's the moment we are in, including almost exactly 1 year ago when the United States Supreme Court, the Court of Thurgood, the Court of RBG, took a constitutional right that had been recognized from the people of America, from the women of America, took the right of every woman to make decisions about her own body. So tomorrow, many of us will be, and I invite you, I know we're going to be spread out all over the country, but I'll be in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I intend to describe the impact of the past 365 days on the health, the safety, and the well-being of the women of our nation. And the impact is clear. And a year later, it is also clear that extremists in Congress plan to ban abortion nationwide. Nationwide. But I have news for these extremists. As I look at all the friends and the leaders, the people of America will not accept that. Planned Parenthood will not accept that. NARAL pro-choice America will not accept that. Emily's List will not accept that. And you know President Biden and I will not accept that. And I do believe When you know what you stand for, you know what to fight for. We stand for the freedom of every American, including the freedom of every person, everywhere, to make decisions about their own body, their own health care, and their own doctors. So we fight for reproductive rights and legislation that restores the protections of Roe v. Wade. And here's the thing. The majority of Americans are with us. They agree. The majority of Americans are with us. From Kansas to California during the midterms, the evidence is clear. There's empirical evidence of this point. The majority of Americans agreed that an important attribute, and I believe this, the President and I were talking about it, the majority of Americans I know also believe that an important attribute of a true leader is the ability to have empathy. To truly have some curiosity, concern, and care for the struggles of other people. You know, there's something happening in our country right now where some people would suggest that the measure of strength is based on who you beat down. That's perverse. The true measure of strength is based on who you lift up. So as we move on, we know empathy is a true quality of a true leader. And that is the true Joe Biden, I might say. And Americans know that when we go forward on this issue, it is also a truth that one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree that the government should not be telling her what to do with her body. So Planned Parenthood, NARAL, Emily's List, we stand and we fight for the women, for the people of America, and for the dedicated healthcare providers of America, providers like our next speaker, and I'm so proud to introduce her, an OBGYN who is on the front lines of this fight. Please welcome Dr. Serena Floyd, Medical Director for Planned Parenthood of Metropolitan Washington, D.C.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Serena Floyd. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a board-certified OBGYN and an abortion provider. I decided over 20 years ago to become an OBGYN physician because of the meaningful impact I could have in others' lives. I became an abortion provider because I wanted to provide compassionate, non-judgmental care to those with an absolute right to make personal decisions about their health, about their bodies, and what is best for themselves and their families. I am angered and I am frustrated every day by opponents of sexual and reproductive health who believe it is their right to control the bodies, lives, and futures of millions. The egregious attacks on reproductive freedom that are sweeping this country directly impact not just those I care for, but all of us, whether you are a patient, a parent, a partner, a family member, a friend, an advocate, or a provider like me. That is why it has never been more critical for us to have leaders in positions of power who will protect our patients and our ability to do our jobs the way we have been trained to do them. Leaders with a fierce sense of determination and an indomitable resilience that those of us doing this work and our patients need and deserve. President Biden and Vice President Harris have been strong partners for us in the White House, and I am so grateful for their leadership. It is now my honor to introduce the President of the United States, Mr. Joe Biden.
Jill said you women should take off your high heels. The rest of you should lie down. My Lord, talk about commitment standing all this time. Thank you, Doc. I appreciate that introduction. I really do. My name is Joe Biden. I am Jill's husband and Kamala's running mate. Y'all think I'm kidding. I want to start by thanking Kamala for taking the lead on this issue and so many other issues in our campaign and our governing. And I want to thank Jill and Doug for their work shining a spotlight on the issue affecting women. And I want to thank all of you, Emily's List, NARAL, Planned Parenthood, for your endorsement. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Your support was critical last time around, and we're so grateful for it, and we're working hard with you again. I can't think of 3 organizations that will have more consequential impact on the right and the ability to regain freedom. You know, you have troops on the ground in every single state, and we're going to need all those troops in those states. We want to thank Nancy Pelosi, a good friend who's been an ally and friend of mine for a long time, as well as the many members of Congress that are here, and elected officials from all around the country. To state the obvious, and it's clear by now, it's almost redundant to say it, this fight really matters. It really, really matters. Since the day the Dobbs decision came down, 1 year ago tomorrow, we've seen the devastating effects all across the country. Women turned away from emergency rooms, denied life-saving care, moms, college students, teachers, nurses, traveling hundreds of miles to get basic reproductive health care. And we just heard from Jill, who's heard the stories firsthand. You know, we've all heard the stories firsthand. People come up to you, people we've known, people we've grown up with. You know, and since that dark June day last year, each of you has worked tirelessly to fight back. And the Dobbs decision, the court practically dared the women of America to be heard. This was the majority wrote. Women are not without electoral or political power. You ain't seen nothing yet, court. Oh, I really mean it. Think of the challenge that is. I said at the time that I didn't think the court, or for that matter, the Republican Party, knew for decades have pushed their extreme agenda, have any clue about the power of women in America. I said they're about to find out. And by the way, in the midterms, when we were supposed to be blown out, they did find out. And they're going to find out again. I really believe it in my heart. I believe it. Look, we were criticized for making this an issue in the midterms. In fact, I got attacked for it. But you know, all along, what Kamala and Doug and Jill and I knew as well, the Americans would not stand by and let the court take away the right that's so fundamental. That we'd fight to restore these protections of Roe v. Wade and make it the law of the land once again, and we're going to do that. And we would let most personal decisions fall in the hands of politicians instead of women or their doctors. The court was betting that all of us would remain silent. But my mother had an expression. She said, Joey, never bow, never bend, never yield. Just get up. Oh, you think I'm kidding. You didn't know my mom. That the women of America would remain silent was just beyond comprehension. That Kamala and I would remain silent. Well, we're not. We will not remain silent. And all over this country, thanks to the hard work of the voters, delivered a clear message. In Kansas, in Michigan, in Kentucky, in the polls in November, Americans voted to protect a woman's right to choose. In fact, you all showed up and beat the hell out of them. No. But what's really remarkable is despite the will of the American people, MAGA Republicans have made clear that they don't intend to stop with the Dobbs decision. No, they won't, until they get a national ban on abortion. Speaker McCarthy has said, quote, our work is far from done, end of quote. Senator Lindsey Graham wants to criminalize doctors and nurses who provide medical care for their patients. Make it a crime. Republicans in Congress have proposed 3 national abortion bans just this last year. Well, make no mistake about it. If somehow Congress were to pass a national ban, I will veto it. Let's also be clear that this decision also risks the broader rights of privacy for everyone. That's because the fundamental right to privacy, which Roe recognized, has served as a basis for so many other rights that are ingrained in our fabric of our country. The right to make the best decisions for your health. The right to use birth control. You ever think we'd be arguing about that? No, I'm serious. The right to marry the person you love. Judge Thomas said as much in his concurring opinion in Dobbs, writing, quote, "For that reason, the future cases we should reconsider all the court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell." These guys are serious, man. I said it when the decision came out, and people looked at me like I was exaggerating. But they're not stopping here. Make no mistake, this election is about freedom on the ballot once again. Look, we made so much progress. We can't let it take us backwards. I believe that one of the best ways to continue making progress is to ensure women are at every table where every decision is made. And that's not hyperbole. That's not hyperbole. I promised that my administration would look like America. My cabinet is the first majority female cabinet in history. You just heard from the first woman ever Vice President of the United States. And perhaps the most critical of milestones we mark tomorrow, we are reshaping our courts. We've appointed more black women to the Federal Circuit Courts of Appeal than every other president in American history combined. And of course, I was proud to keep my promise to appoint Justice Jackson, the first black woman in the Supreme Court. And by the way, she's smarter than the rest. I'm serious, she's incredible. She is genuinely incredible. We're also making progress building an economy where all Americans have the opportunity to work, raise a family, buy a home, start a business. We made historic investments in child care, making it more affordable so parents can work and provide for their kids at the same time. The first major piece of legislation I signed, the American Rescue Plan, provided historic tax relief for millions of families, helped to recover child care costs. We have the largest increase in history of child care tax credit, the dependent care child tax credit. We helped 200,000 children care providers stay open in small businesses, continuing to go through the pandemic, and continue to serve more than 9.5 million children. These things matter. I signed legislation increasing funding for child care development block grants by 30%, helping low-income families afford child care. But there's so much more to do. And we're fighting over abortion. For example, the United States is still one of the only countries in the world that doesn't guarantee paid leave. I remain committed to changing that. And bringing us in line with every other single major economy in the world by passing a national program for paid leave and medical leave. We can get all this done and so much more. We can restore the protections of Roe v. Wade and make it the law of the land again. But we're going to need your help badly. So let me ask you this. Do you think your colleagues are with us? Well, I tell you what, they better damn well be. After the Dobbs decision came down, I signed 2 executive orders my administration took a number of actions to protect the access to reproductive health care. And it's just the one I signed, the 3rd executive order, which is to strengthen the affordability of high-quality contraception. The idea that I had to do that, I mean, no, really, think about it. Think about it. I know I'm 198 years old. But all kidding aside, think about that. I never, ever thought I'd be signing an executive order protecting the right to contraception. But the only sure way to protect a woman's health and rights is for Congress to pass a law. As I said before, the court got Roe right 50 years ago. And I believe Congress should restore the protections of Roe v. Wade once and for all. But we need your help. So I'm asking again, are you with us? You're going to get this done? I really mean it. So let me close. Let me close with this. Over the last week or so, we've seen extraordinary support from three of the most important voices in the country coming together to get behind this campaign. Organized labor, climate leaders, and all of you representing the powerful groups fighting to protect the advantage for women's rights. Your strong support, your determination, your advocacy are why I've never, I know I've said this before, and I want you to listen to it again. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I have never been more optimistic about America's future than I am today. And with your help, Kamala and I are continuing to make the progress. We're going to finish this job. We just have to remember who the hell we are. We're the United States of America, and there's nothing beyond our country if we work together. So God bless you all. May God protect our troops. Let's go get this done. Let's get it done. Thank you.